Four Rooms is a 1995 comedy anthology film directed by four different people. You've got Allison Anders, Alexandre Rockwell, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino.
The film itself is set in a hotel, so it's a little bit like, if you go back to the 70s, there were two films in the 70s, it was Plaza Suite and California Suite, which are two films written by Neil Simon. And they're films set in a hotel with each story is in a different room. So it's that kind of, anthology. A lot of horror anthologies as well, and I think there's also the Scorsese Woody Allen one from the 80s, New York Stories is another one. So these kind of anthology films where different directors direct different sections of the film. And in this one, you have Tim Roth, the British actor. He plays a bellboy, and it's his first night on the job, and it's New Year's Eve, and he's basically having to look after this whole hotel all by himself. And so at the very beginning of the film, you're introduced to Ted, played by Tim Roth here, and he's being kind of handed over the reins from the much older bellboy who's probably worked there most of his life. And the hotel, we should say, it's in Los Angeles, and it kind of, I think it's set in modern day, but it's kind of got that kind of glamorous 1940s, 50s feel. I mean, the film starts with a kind of a cartoon, and there's a scat singing over it, which is quite wacky and a bit kind of Pink Panther-esque and stuff. And then Tim Roth goes off into the hotel, and throughout the film, each different room phones him up and they have a problem, and he has to go and kind of help with the problem or get involved with it, or all kinds of crazy things happen. So the first room is a Coven of Witches, and they're kind of performing a ritual to wake up the spirit of a former witch who has been she's been turned to stone at one point in 40 years ago, and they're all here. It's the special night, New Year's Eve, and they're going to raise her body again. Something goes wrong. Tim Roth is obviously brought in to help them out. And then from there he goes to another room. There's another room with a couple, and in this room you've got a man. Well, as soon as he enters the room, he's got a gun in his face, and the man has got his wife tied up. He's basically accusing Ted of sleeping with his wife. So he's got that one to deal with, and then from there he goes to another room with Antonio Banderas, and Antonio Banderas is basically, he's going out with his family for a New Year's celebration, but he decides he'll have more fun if he takes his wife and leave the kids in the bedroom. So obviously the kids are 7, 8 years old, a couple of tearaways, and he asks Ted to look after them. And of course, you leave a couple of kids alone in the hotel room, what's going to happen? They're going to misbehave, as is the title of the piece. Mm-hmm. At this point, Ted is ripping his hair out, and he calls his manager, who's left him alone in the hotel, and says, "That's it, I'm off, I quit." And she says, "You can do what you like, but just please look after the penthouse suite." And so he goes up to the penthouse suite, and you're introduced, the doors open, and there is Quentin Tarantino. And yeah.
Hilarity ensues.
And hilarity ensues. So that's basically it. It's an anthology film with four different stories
all tied together with
the bellhop, indeed. And like you said at the beginning, each story is directed by a different director. The Coven of Witches room is directed by Allison Anders. She previously had made Gas Food Lodging with Ione Skye, who was actually one of the witches inside the room. Then the next bit is Alexandre Rockwell, and he directed In the Soup, which was a big film in the early 90s with Steve Buscemi. And the next one is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who of course had already done Desperado with Antonio Banderas. And then the final one is directed by Quentin Tarantino. And obviously within this film there's all kinds of actors that turn up. Many of them who are big at that kind of mid-90s point. In the room with all the witches, you've got people like, you've got Ione Skye, you've got Lili Taylor, there's Madonna in there. There's Sammi Davis, who's a great British actress who has not done enough, in my opinion. Turned up in a couple of Ken Russell films in the mid-80s. Then the next room, there's Jennifer Beals from Flashdance, and David Proval, something like that. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce his name. I can't quite say I place him from anything in particular, but you recognise him from a few
recognise
things.
him as something.
And then obviously the next story is Antonio Banderas. He's in there. And his wife is played by, is it
Tamilyn Tomita?
And then in the final room, there's Tarantino, who obviously directed it, and is in it. And Bruce Willis is in there, and Jennifer Beals, who obviously was in the story a couple of stories back. And then there's also the actor Paul Calderon, who I'm not sure, I don't know who that is. You might well know him if you're American and were around in the mid-90s. You can maybe help us out with that one. But yeah, so that's basically it. And what do you think of the film?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't get a great reception when it was released.
It didn't.
I think, the individual stories are varying in quality, I think. I mean, for me, the strongest one is the Rodriguez one. The two kids in it are great. Antonio Banderas is brilliant as the dad. He's straight, I think he's pretty much come straight off Desperado, so he's still got his ponytail and his slick back hair and looks quite menacing.
But he's very funny.
He is very funny in it,
well.
and the way that the story plays out is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I think for me the weakest one is the witch one because it's just a bit weird. You got Madonna in there, who I don't think is the greatest actor ever.
She won a Razzie for this, didn't she?
She did. Yeah. She did.
Yeah.
So it's still enjoyable. I think because it's the first one. I think I don't know. It feels like the weakest one to me. But that's my opinion.
I liked the first one because I think it's got a really strong cast. I think
the cast is definitely good. Yeah.
And you're right. It doesn't. I mean, it's the first one, and there's not a lot to do, I suppose. But I just quite enjoyed all those actors kind of coming together, and there's also sorry, we should mention Valeria Golino is in there as well, and a short kind of cameo from Amanda Cadney, who was a model at the time.
Yeah,
but you're right, it's not the strongest story. No. I don't think.
And there's also Alicia Witt in there as well.
Alicia Witt
at the time was, I think, for me was most famous from the Sybil sitcom starring Sybil Shepherd. But yeah, so. If you love witches...
If you like witches, you might get something out of that one.
But yeah, I think for me the Rodriguez one is definitely the best. And the Tarantino one is good, but it's probably got a bit too much Tarantino in it.
Yes.
He's funny and he, as a director, he's great, but I think he's not the strongest actor. And he does give himself a lot of lines in this.
He does. He always gives himself a lot of lines, doesn't he? Yeah,
which is fair enough. It's his film. He can do what he wants.
Indeed. I know. I mean, I really like this one, and I forgot how good it is. I think it's quite a strong episode. It is actually, and in fact, they do say inside the story they reference what's going on. They reference to an Alfred Hitchcock's Presents episode starring Steve McQueen and Peter Lorre, and that's kind of. That episode is then what takes place within this story. That episode was actually originally written by Roald Dahl as a short story, which he himself told in the Tales from the Unexpected in the 70s. It's a really great story, and I think what Tarantino does with that story is just perfect.
No, it's good,
and it's really
good,
really very funny. Whether or not you get annoyed by Tarantino's acting. That's fine. But, I mean, as always, with Tarantino, he's so knowledgeable on film and TV. There's lots of... I mean, there's a great moment, actually, where when he first meets Ted, when he first meets the bellboy, he talks about how there's obviously the famous Jerry Lewis role playing a bellboy, and he makes an interesting comment about how no one really likes Jerry Lewis, and he kind of says, "Oh look, when Jerry Lewis dies, all the newspapers around the country are going to say he was a genius." And of course, last year Jerry Lewis passed away, and all the newspapers said he was a genius. So Tarantino got the nail on the head on that one.
I mean, I think what I would say probably is it's not really Tarantino acting, is it? It's just Tarantino playing himself.
It's Tarantino playing Tarantino, exactly. Yeah.
So he does it. Yeah, he does it well.
I think the actual one thing we haven't really spoken about is Tim Roth, because he is the main guy in it.
Yep.
Obviously, Tim Roth, British actor, great British actor. I really like Tim Roth. I think his early British films that he made in Britain and Meantime, are just superb and well worth checking out if you don't know those films. I have a little issue with him in this film, though. I don't know, because he's clearly playing it over the top. And I don't know whether he's playing over the top well, or he's just being over the top.
It's a strange performance.
It's a very strange performance, yeah. I mean,
I think when you first start watching it, once you maybe half an hour into the movie, you go with it. But at first, it's a bit like, what's he doing? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, playing comedy is hard, and I've always kind of thought the best way to play comedy is to play it straight. That's how they used to do it. You know, how they used to say how to do it in the old days. If you play it straight, it's hilarious. If you try and be funny, it's sometimes not funny. And to me, it feels like he's trying to be funny because he's not a comedy actor. But I have seen him. I think I've seen him in other comic roles. Well, yeah, he's in that. He's in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead with Gary Oldman, and he's very funny in that. But that's obviously a different thing.
I think once you get used to it,
and once you
performance,
get used to it,
I
yeah.
think...
But there's a couple of moments in there where he's by himself, and I think he's really funny. And there's some great moments in there. Can you see it?
Yeah, you can get the DVD, relatively simple to pick up. There's no Blu-ray release over here or in the States that I'm aware of. It has been released on Blu-ray in some European countries. It does appear there's some extras on them as well.
There's a German one, isn't there?
Yeah, there's no extras on this, unfortunately. But yeah, the German Blu-ray appears to have some behind-the-scenes stuff on it. So there might be one to go for. Whether it's all in German, who knows? But hopefully at some point we might get an English language release, but don't know. It wasn't that well received when it was released, critically or by audiences, to be honest, because it is a bit of an odd one. Despite having Tarantino's name on it and Rodriguez's name on it, because it's a bit strange. I don't think it quite found the audience that it was after. But it's I think if you're a Tarantino completist, it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, definitely.
It is funny. It does have its good moments. It's not perfect, but it's definitely worth picking up. And there's loads of familiar faces in there, like Marissa Tomei and Kathy Griffin, and lots of famous faces who might only be in it briefly. For the Rodriguez and Tarantino section, it's definitely worth.
Yeah, definitely worth it for those two, particularly the Rodriguez one, which is just a really great story and really well done and everything. And Salma Hayek.
Yes, blink and you miss her.
Blink and you miss her.
She is in there, yeah.
She's in there too. So yeah, all round a good little film. So that was 4 Rooms, and we hope you enjoyed this video. Mm-hmm. And as always, leave a comment. Maybe, in fact, you could tell us how to pronounce Prouval, because I certainly couldn't get it right. Prouval. Do that, and or comment on the video. We'd love to hear from you. Subscribe.
Yep, do that, definitely. We've got to reach those magic 1,000 subscribers.
We have. We're getting there. We got another one the other day, so thank you for whoever you were. That was a good one. 24.
Yeah, hooray. So yeah, check out some of our other videos. There'll be a couple of links coming up. Yeah. And and we're on Twitter and Facebook. Check us out on there as well.
We are.
And stay tuned for another one next week.